Okay.
All right, so thank you for joining us. We are joined by my man Adrian Marshall with Lockheed Martin in Marietta, Georgia. We are recording this for our friends, all of our STEM students in Madison County Schools, including Stanley Carroll at Shirley Simmons Middle School, Vicky Parks at Germantown High School, and Jatoria Kirksey and Angela Reed at Old Town Middle School. So a lot of our middle school STEM students will be able to hear about all the cool things you guys are doing with Lockheed Martin. And before we get into what all you do there on an everyday basis and all the cool technology and toys you get to play with, you tell us a little bit about just your background in STEM, your college education, and where you grew up, where you went to college, and all that fun stuff.
Okay. Yep. So again, my name is Adrian Marshall. Grew up in Tallulah, Louisiana, and being a product of Louisiana, I wanted to attend the HBCU, historically Black college and university. So I decided to go to Southern University down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. From there, I went straight to Georgia Tech to pursue a master's degree in electrical and computer engineering. So I did about 6 years straight of schooling, and about that time I was tired of school and jumped into the workforce. And there's when I discovered Lockheed Martin and systems engineering. And that's what I've been doing since then in various roles in systems engineering, project engineering, and engineering management. And that's a little bit about me.
Well, thank you for joining us, Monica. We just started. So all we did
No problem. I was trying to find a quiet place here.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Like I said, we just started, and Adrian just introduced himself and told us about where he grew up and went to college and how he got into his systems engineering.
All right. I guess it's my turn. My name is Monica McKendrick. I am also a systems engineer at Lockheed Martin. I attended college at Clark Atlanta University, originally from Albany, Georgia. Went up there. From Clark Atlanta, I got a bachelor's and a master's in computer science there. I was in a 5-year program there that allowed me to get both degrees. From there, I got hired on with Lockheed Martin at that time into their engineering leadership development program. I'm sorry for the background noise. And I got hired into their engineering leadership development program there, which was a program that allowed me to rotate and do different engineering jobs for 2 to 3 years to kind of find my fit. And so I've been with Lockheed since then, going on 17 years now. And now I'm a systems engineering manager. Also, once I got hired on, I went and got my master's in business administration degree as well while living in Florida. But now I'm located in the Atlanta area at the Marietta facility as a systems engineering manager.
That's awesome. Now, for those I have with me now and those that may watch later, can you explain a little bit about what Lockheed Martin is and what they do and all the stuff that you guys have a hand in developing every day?
Yeah, so I started, and there's a bunch to add to this, so Monica can chime in with some additional info if she would like. But Lockheed Martin is one of the largest defense contractors for our U.S. government and other governments around the world. So we deal a lot with military customers, all branches of the military, creating ground-based, sea-based, air-based, training equipment and vehicles for our U.S. customer and other customers around the world. So on any given day, I think Lockheed Martin employs over 100,000 people across the world. So you have people working on aircraft, you have people working on tanks, you have people developing and designing AR and VR type devices, virtual and augmented reality that is. And our particular group, we develop simulators for the C-130 aircraft. So ideally, you could take someone through our training portfolio of training devices, from desktop trainers to full motion simulators, and they can go off and fly the aircraft or maintain the aircraft So our job and our mission is to train the greatest and best warfighters there are out there for the protection of our country and protection of our freedoms. So anything in between there, we do some commercial work as well. I know we have some products in education and healthcare and just about anything you could think of. Lockheed Martin has, some type of footprint in those areas.
I don't have much to add. I think Adrian pretty much hit on all that we do here.
Well, that was pretty good. I had to admit it. I had no idea it was 100,000 employees. But when it comes to the systems engineering, you talk about you develop the simulation programs. What are you dealing more with a technology software side, or are you dealing more with a mechanical side, or is it a combination of both?
Really.
I'll go. I'll start. I think it's coming really like a combination of both, right? When we think of systems engineering, we are kind of like oftentimes looking at the whole picture. So we'll work with hardware and mechanical from a design perspective. We'll work with software engineers from a software perspective. And we kind of look at the entire design and that flow process from beginning to end. So systems engineering is kind of a mixture of working with different engineering functions and working things from concept and requirements all the way through the design, integration, software testing, building of different systems until, delivery as well.
Do you have anything to add to that, Adrian?
No, that really captured it. If I had to add anything, to Monica's point or emphasize anything, it's just kind of working across that entire life cycle. Yeah. So systems engineers kind of manage a process and people that are involved, anywhere from our customer gives us a requirement to say, hey, we want a vehicle to do X, Y, and Z. So we take those requirements, we form a team to design to those requirements, build to those requirements, and ultimately deliver to those requirements. And we kind of oversee that entire process, which includes other Lockheed Martin software, hardware, mechanical, electrical engineers, and just manage it until it's delivered to our customer.
Wow, that's overwhelming just thinking about it. But that's actually a great segue into my next question, because I think I can speak for the other STEM teachers when I say this. The common theme we have with some of these students is when they have a problem that's any type of design, engineering, or even the smallest stuff, if it's not right the first time, they think it's too hard and want to quit. So how often the engineering process is it correct the first time? Because like you said, you have a product to deliver to the customer, and obviously there's a lot at stake in here. We're looking at national defense. We're looking at people that have to have the best equipment and the best technology. So what is the process like to make sure it is correct? Because how many tries does that usually take?
Yeah, I heard a term recently within our company called fail fast. And to me, when I first heard it, I was like, why are we planning to fail? But to your point, everything is not always perfect. There are a lot of cases where, something isn't designed correctly, or even if you think it's designed correctly, it gets a testing and it fails a test because something wasn't integrated properly. So there are many stages throughout our process where things fail. And the concept of fail fast is, the quicker you fail and learn from those mistakes, the quicker you can recover and deliver a product to our customer faster than the competitors, right? So so we have come to a point, at least within our group, where we understand that failure is a part of the process very often. Of course, you don't want that to happen, but you realize that, people are not perfect and processes are not perfect. So there are often times where we discover things early on in the process with a design, and the earlier you find these failures, the better. But you take those lessons learned and you recover from them, and you correct the issues that you have. And the quicker you do that, the better it is for your team and for ultimately our customer.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian hit it on. Failure is a part of the process. And the only thing I would, I guess, say add, or I mean, he kind of said it, it's part of how we learn, right? I failed many times, right? Unfortunately, but it's in those moments that I learned the correct process and was able to know what to do the next time. So it's just a part of life. It's a part of the engineering world, and it's going to happen, but don't let that deter you.
Yeah, and you talk about all the new technology and the things you have to be up on, because I mean, I'm not trying to call you guys old, because I know we're all about the same age, but what you learned in college in the engineering programs, I'm sure a lot of that's already out of date because of the changing technology. Now, you know, these kids, they want to be up on TikTok and Snapchat and everything, and that's all fine. You know, that's fun, but how important is it to be always learning the new technologies that come out? Because in any STEM field, whether it be mechanical or chemical or industrial, how important is it to be up on that? Because it's always going to change, and it's going to be needed for these products that are needed by customers.
Yeah, that's key. And Monica can attest to this because she was actually attending a meeting earlier this week where a few of our suppliers, they came to us with a presentation, say, all right, here's where we are now. Here's the upcoming greatest and latest technology. This is going to provide, you know, faster service for you. It's going to provide, you know, more robust systems so you will fail less. Or, you know, this is something that's going to be cheaper for your customer. So especially in our field of work, our government is always looking for ways to cut costs. Yep. Ultimately, you and me and in the future, some of those in your classroom there will be paying taxes that contribute to what our government uses to pay Lockheed Martin.
You're absolutely right.
So they want things faster, they want things cheaper, and they want things better. So if we are still dealing with technology from 3 years ago, there's a lot newer technology that is just that. It's cheaper, it's faster, and it's more robust. So it's very important in everything that we do. We plan for it in our designs to say, hey, Windows 10 is going to be obsolete someday. So we need to get some systems with Windows 11 or looking forward to Windows 12. Or if you're on iOS operating systems, you can't always deal with, iOS version 1, right?
Oh,
you
man.
need to catch up to 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Adrian said, we're always trying to look ahead, but then in the systems that we design, right, it's important that we're also trying to figure out how to make our technology work with those newer systems as they come up. So I think, that's the biggest key that we do from day to day, because it's always changing. And, if they change the way something's coded, we may have to go back and update on our end to make it work. So.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the Windows and the iOS, because that's something else I wanted to talk about, because we're lucky. Our school district, every student in high school has a MacBook for them to use throughout their high school career. I mean, that's unheard of, especially in Mississippi. Yep. And then our 8th graders, a lot of the middle school students that'll see this have Chromebooks. So how important is it to know, because they want to moan and groan when I have them on a Windows operating system to do an assignment, because how important is it to know all those operating systems, even if you're not in STEM? How important? Because I tell them I've never had a job where I haven't had to use both. So how important is it to learn multiple operating systems just to be successful in any type of industry?
Yeah, so I'll say this, obviously the more you know and the more you're equipped with in your tool belt, we'll call it, the better it is for you, right? There are some people in Lockheed Martin that only deal with iOS. There are some people that only deal with Windows, but obviously you want to make yourself more versatile. There are groups that deal with both, or you might have an opportunity to work with one that you're not familiar with over the other. But if you are familiar with both, I think it definitely helps with the possibilities and potential that you have within our company. So So I think that goes with anything. It's just not operating systems, programming languages, mathematical skill sets or tools, designing profiles and tools. I think all those are important. We don't often have experts in all of those areas, but certainly, when we have people that are proficient in multiple areas, they are more marketable and they can be more beneficial to the team.
Yeah, I concur. I would just say it's always good to know at least a little bit about a lot.
Yeah.
You might not be the expert in Microsoft or using the MacBook, but if you know a little bit about a lot, that's a starting point, right? Because we can always learn more and educate ourselves. So it goes the same as he mentioned with software programming, the different programming languages, etc. If you just know a little bit about a lot and how they can correlate, I think you can make it work.
Yeah, and as far as Lockheed Martin, what type of people are they looking to hire? Is it only people with engineering degrees? Is it any tradespeople, or is it any I know Monica had the MBA. What type of levels of experience education are they looking for in this field to get into this into this industry?
I would say all, right? We have employees at Lockheed Martin that work in various functions and areas, various backgrounds. We have people that have started out, coming from like a technical college or not having a college degree at all. At our location in Marietta, we actually build the aircraft as well. So we have a lot of, technicians coming in and learning, the mechanical side and the hardware side. And we know quite a few people that have moved up the chain, just starting from there, right? So I don't think you have to have like a certain degree to get employment with Lockheed Martin, because we have opportunities all across the board.
Yeah, like we were mentioning earlier, we develop products across the spectrum, right? From healthcare to military devices to education. So obviously, when you're building devices like this, you want people with proficiency and backgrounds in those areas. So we have employed teachers, we've employed doctors, we've employed lawyers, we obviously engineers, and everything on that spectrum. We have a need for janitorial services. We have a need for cooks. We have a need for just about anything you could think of. You could probably find somebody in Lockheed Martin that fits that background and has that education to meet that background, whether that's just straight out of high school or a technical degree or engineering degree or higher. Right, so it's really opportunities across the board there.
Yeah, and just from I guess kind of a funny standpoint, if you're somebody that wants to build stuff like the lasers and the guns and the you want to build something that blows stuff up, you might get the opportunity at Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, we make some
Definitely.
of those things as well.
So yeah, I mean, if you want to build something cool that's going to make a big explosion, you probably get that opportunity at Lockheed Martin. And then also, before I get to some of these students' questions, I know Monica, you've worked in multiple states for Lockheed Martin. So if we have kids now that I want to get out of Mississippi, I want to live in Atlanta, or Lockheed Martin affords that opportunity to not only be in Atlanta, but you guys have locations all over the country, and the skills are portable. So
yeah, we have locations all over the country and the world, right? We have Lockheed Martin in many countries outside of the United States. Adrian and I have both been afforded the opportunity to travel internationally with our job in the program that we support. As you mentioned, we have companies and locations literally throughout the United States as well. So the opportunity is there. Like I said, I started out in Florida. I'm not sure if I mentioned where. And then I was able to relocate back to Georgia. And the opportunities are there.
And then, and also I have, obviously I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this before I get to the students' questions, is both of you are HBCU grads. And I know you, Adrian, you have your master's from Georgia Tech, which is PWI. I forget, Monica, where you got your MBA from. Tell me again.
Rollins College. It's also a PWI.
Okay, so I always ask this, and I like getting the different. I like getting the different perspectives. HBCU undergrad, PWI postgrad. What are the pros and cons of both of those institutions for someone going to college?
Well, I have I do have a graduate degree from an HBCU as well. I was adamant to go to a HBCU out of high school because it's a school for us, right? I think that we can get the same education, the same skill sets, et cetera, as other institutions, and we can succeed, right? So I think I just wanted to highlight that first, right? I don't want people to feel that they won't have the same opportunities there. We may have to look a little harder, just to be frank. We may have to, do a little bit more research. But at Clark Atlanta, I did internships every summer at Fortune 500 companies. I, had connections with different companies as well, right? So those opportunities are there. It may be a little bit easier at a PWI. I'm not quite sure, to be quite honest, from an undergraduate perspective. But you may still run into other difficulties when it comes to that as well. I did get my master's in business from a PWI. I mean, it was a totally different experience for me. On the undergraduate level, there were some other students that weren't Black or, people of color, but it wasn't many. In PWI, I was the only Black person in my cohort the entire time. So it's a different experience. They, but not a bad one, right? It's you do get to see a different culture. You get to learn things a different way. It's just different. So neither is bad. I think it just depends on what you're looking for. I found that on the undergraduate level, I was with people that looked like me, that understood my experiences. I had professors that wanted to see me succeed and could pour into me in different ways. On the PWI, not quite so, right? Not saying that they weren't caring, but it was a different type of atmosphere. I was singled out more, like, well, what's your opinion, right?
Ooh.
But that can be an opportunity as well, right? For you to bring in your opinion and your experiences. So I don't think one is better over the other. I think it's a matter of preference. And I just want to point out that you can succeed wherever you go.
Yeah, and that's, it's like you said, people asking your opinion. You may not change their mind, but you can at least change their perspective.
Right.
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking that question because, that enlightened me as well, hearing Monica's response. We went to different HBCUs, we went to different PWIs, but experience was very much the same. And, to Monica's point, I'm not here to debate if one was better than the other for me. And I will tell you some of the differences I found, and Monica hit on this. One of the biggest differences I found between the HBCU and the PWI was just connection to the people around me. At a HBCU, I felt much more of that connection. It was easier for me to get in, study groups, and the teachers and professors were seemed like they wanted to be there to help me more and wanted to help me succeed. When I went to PWI, not as much of a connection, but I think the professors there, and this might not be necessarily because it was a PWI, just because it was a larger school, right? They have more resources, and they were more research focused. In addition to the classroom environment, they were working on like, hey, I really need to get this grant, so this grant is my focus right now, and not necessarily this classroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it wasn't like every teacher, but I found it a lot more in PWIs. But to Monica's point, school is pretty much going to be what you put into it is what you're going to get out. You have the same books to study from. The one advantage, at least in the HBCU and the PWI that I went to, advantage PWI in this case was the research facilities and labs. Much larger school.
Georgia Tech got some of the best in the world.
Yeah, a lot more technology. So it helped me connect those dots a little bit better. Just having access to some of the things that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. But I think that's just like, any other area within the college environment. We're seeing it a lot with, sports, where, a lot of the best athletes have been going to PWIs, but now we're seeing those that go to HBCUs, they're getting those same opportunities as well. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and also again, obviously I went to a PWI, but I agree with your point, Adrian. I had trouble making those connections as well, and this is me being a white person at a PWI. If you're in a class of 500 people, that professor didn't know me from a can of paint.
Yeah,
you're right. She was an okay teacher, but she was more worried about the stuff she had to do outside of the class. So I think it's important for everybody watching. You say you want to go to these big schools, that's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, and in a big class, you might have to find your own way more than you might realize. And I can also say I've been on campus at Southern University and at Clark Atlanta. And one thing both of those HBCUs are going to offer is they're in big cities with a lot of opportunities for internship and community involvement. Baton Rouge, I went to LSU, so I know at Baton Rouge there's all kind of engineering internships at some of those ports that deal with the shipping and transportation. There's a lot of construction engineering internships available. Hold on one second. Sorry, I got buzzed by the office. But there's a lot of there's also a lot of petroleum engineering there as well in the Baton Rouge area. And then in Clark Atlanta, you're right there in the middle of downtown Atlanta and just around so many tech companies that are always looking for internships and people to learn the craft from. Because like you said, they want people that know the new technology because the technology is always changing. So that's one big advantage of both of those HBCUs that every HBCU cannot offer. And that's just something I've seen on the outside looking in. So if anybody's thinking about an HBCU, that's one thing that they have to offer. And then here also at Jackson State, they have a new electrical engineering program. And right here in Jackson, we have all kind of power companies that are always, and electrical companies always looking for that help. So that is a huge thing about the HBCUs that is changing throughout the nation. But like I said, Monica, you weren't on earlier. We are kind of light today here in person because our school's playing in the state championship basketball game. But I do have a few students here with me. And we have a few questions. The first one's from Brian McMurtry, and he's in 10th grade. And he's asking about what type of materials do you guys have to be familiar with in these processes, and how does that affect the engineering process?
Yeah, so in our group, not so much, but I've had some experience in this area. I actually did an internship at Michigan Tech in a material science group, and also worked at Texas Instruments, who in Dallas, Texas. Yep, yep. So unfortunately, I didn't get to work with the calculator group, but did work with a few other cool groups within Texas Instruments. One of those that dealt with materials. So in those groups, they are researching different and various materials, like on a constant basis, right? Because you're looking for every advantage that you can find. And with materials, we think about our technology these days, you're looking to design things lighter and smaller. So they're designing new technology with materials to provide that same robustness with a lighter feel to it or lighter weight to it. And to that point, I kind of mistakenly said feel, but that's another thing that you look for in materials, the feel. So definitely if that's something you're interested in, it wasn't necessarily my interest, but there's like a huge need for people that study material science and different materials that are out there.
I don't have anything to add to that one.
Yeah, and obviously, I know you guys are more on the simulation side, but at Lockheed Martin, I mean, you got several materials that are going into a helicopter, from
Mhm.
plastic to metal to wiring. So they're, the experience in materials is extremely important. Because especially in a consumer product, because people, if people are going to have their hands on it, it's going to have to be safe as well.
And let me give a quick example. So in our simulators, we have this visual system and it projects onto a bowl. So the material that we used for that was like a mylar, thick of a big foil sheet, if you will. But now we've gone to a glass because it's, and a few of the considerations there, it provides a crisper image, but also it's heavier. So you kind of weigh the pros and cons, like which material do I want to go with here? And, what are the pros and cons? So that's just one example to kind of tie in what we were saying there.
Interesting. I mean, and that's a big deal. This is Tatiana Jackson. She's in 9th grade, and she asked, "What is the top skill a systems engineer must have?"
Let's see. So I'm gonna go where my first mind went. I think soft skills are very important,
Yep.
right? I think we focus a lot on, the technical. And it's great. Don't get me wrong. You still have to have that technical knowledge, but I want to point out that it's important that we have the soft skills as well. Being able to communicate, being able to, lead a meeting, converse with people, show empathy, right? All of that is important, especially when you come into the workplace. So that was the first thing I thought about. But from a technical perspective, I would say quick thinking, again, knowing that we might not know everything, but we know how to go and find it, right? Because, again, knowing a little bit about a lot. Like, I know a little bit about that is a starting point. So being able to think quick and know how, I think it's all about your mindset. A lot of times when it comes to engineering, being able to find the answers that we need and get us on a path to closure.
Yeah, and I think that answer is a lot harder for systems engineers than for some other engineering majors. But I was kind of drawing the exact direction Monica was in terms of, the soft skills came to mind first. You definitely have to be adaptable because you're dealing with multiple engineering functions and even functions outside of engineering on a daily and weekly basis.
Yep.
So being able to communication is always key. That's a top one for me. And just thinking outside of the box. So those are those soft skills Monica was mentioning. On the technical side, I think back to my schooling. I've had to use something within, all the areas of STEM and STEAM throughout my career, from math, to the science background, to engineering, of course, and all the technology that goes with that. So I wouldn't necessarily put one higher up on the pedestal, but especially within the area of systems engineering, it helps to be well-rounded in all those areas.
And I'm glad y'all brought that up. I'm glad y'all brought that up because the students always get mad at me when I make them present something. They do act like I'm trying to be mean. But the importance of communication skills cannot be diminished, because you can be an expert on something, but if you can't explain it or you can't sell it, you did all that work for nothing. So it's very important to have those communication skills, not only with customers, but with colleagues and with employers and employees, because everybody's got to be on the same page in any industry you're in. And I'm really glad you guys brought that up. This is Kamiria Smith. She's also in 9th grade. And she asked, how do you see students of the future of getting into the same field and learning the skills you guys have learned?
Yeah, so and this might be a little biased, given my age, but I think it's going to be a lot easier for students of the future to tap into what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And you just think about it, and I might be aging myself a little bit, but there was not necessarily a Google when I was coming up in school. And had to go to the Encyclopedia Britannica, open up a book to find, an answer to a simple question that Google can spit out in instantly, right? So the access to information is growing, and it's growing at exponential speeds. So I look at it from that aspect in terms of that access to that information. I think is making it more accessible for people to get trained up and schooled up on topics a lot quicker than it is now and that it used to be. I would also, just kind of want to mention there, with students of the future, I think that they'll be able to connect a lot better to the up and coming technology. For example, as we are growing with technology, a lot of people in the workforce are learning it. And, it took me a while to get familiar with technology and touch screens and computers and things of that sort. But that's what my kids are growing up on these days. Like, they have no issue, pulling up, an iPhone or some electronic device, getting to where they need to go very quickly. So I think as they're growing with this technology, it's going to be a lot better for them to be get into some of these fields a little quicker and easier than I might have had to go through.
Cool.
I mean, I totally agree with Adrian. We aren't old, but technology happens really fast, right?
Yeah.
And so that's at least that's what I'm going to say. And it was different when we were in college and when we were younger to what the opportunities that they have today and the knowledge that they have today. So I agree. It's definitely going to be a lot easier because they're going to understand it quicker and better than we did.
Oh, absolutely. Well, guys, we're almost out of time. And again, we thank both of y'all for joining us again so much. But before we go, and I've talked about this before when you were with us last time, but Adrian, you're from right across the Mississippi River in Tallulah, Louisiana. So basically, you can almost call you a Mississippian. And Monica, you're from Little Albany, Georgia. Both of y'all grew up rural. Both of y'all grew up Black in America. So you've faced some unbelievable obstacles, but yet y'all both become extremely successful. And it's just hearing y'all's resumes is just beyond impressive. And y'all deserve everything you get. But how can these students that are watching now or watching later from the same rural areas, growing up with the same obstacles, become just as successful as you guys have become?
I just think my logic in life is just try it, right? Don't give up. Don't limit yourself. For me, it was important to leave Albany. I had the thought, I can always go back home, right? I can always go home. My family is there. If something goes wrong, I can always go. The world is so big and it's so many opportunities. So just step out on faith and just get out there and try it, right? And you just never know what can happen. I just think it's important to realize that those opportunities are there for us. Like I mentioned earlier, it may be a little harder. I'm not going to lie, right? I think that sometimes we have so much against us, but it can be done. Absolutely. And do it. And it's going to be times that they don't want us in the room. They don't want us at the table. After I first call Adrian and I did with you, he was like, I thought you were going to bring up your quote, because one of my quotes at work that I have on my I am at work, it says, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair, or something to that extent, right?
Love it.
So if they don't want you in the room, go in anyway. They may make you feel like you're not supposed to be there, but our voice is just as important. We have things to say and things that we can bring, right? So don't let anything deter you. There will be many obstacles as you get out into this world, right? After high school. High school was the great years, right? We just lived and we didn't have to focus on a lot of that stuff. But once you get out into the real world, there are going to be many people against you that look like you and don't, right? I think it's important to note that. But just get out and succeed. Don't limit yourself. Don't feel like you have to stay in Mississippi if you want to leave. And just be the best that you can be in whatever it is that you want to do. I think that's the important thing at the end of the day. If you are happy with where you are and what you are accomplishing, then all is right in the world. But if you're not, don't define your limits, because there aren't any.
All right. Well, I hate to cut you off. Our Zoom time's about to end, but we thank you guys so much. Great stuff. And we thank you guys so much for joining us. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
Awesome.
Good luck in the championship.
Appreciate it.
Yes.